Our podcast brought to you by Eggland's Best. When it comes to your game day, you want the best in your lineup. That includes your eggs. Eggland's Best delivers more the nutrition you need with 6 times more vitamin D and 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. You can score now with Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com for more information. Also brought to you by Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. They're committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas, looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. We appreciate you listening to us wherever you are. Maybe you're on our Apple Podcast or Spotify pages. You can find those by searching Whole Hog Sports. We also put our podcast videos on YouTube and on our social media pages at Facebook and Twitter. Just search Whole Hog Sports there. Hope that you'll join us there or at our website, wholehogsports.com. And now, today's episode.
And welcome to the Whole Hog Sports Podcast. I'm Chip Souza sitting in today for Matt Jones. I'm joined by Ethan Westerman. He is in Little Rock, and Tom Murphy is at home dealing with air conditioner issues today, which is something nobody wants to deal with at this time of year. How's it going, guys? You guys probably have a little jet lag coming in from Tampa from last night.
Yeah, it was a long week in Tampa, and got back, but you know what? It's all going to work out, and pleasure to be on the podcast today.
Well, Tom, I must say, you look pretty cool considering your house might be a little bit warm.
Well, thank you. Right now it's 83 degrees, and they're going to get to work and see what we can do. It gets up to 90 during the day, though.
Well, you've been down in Florida, so you're used to that heat and humidity, so it won't be too bad. Ethan, what's going on with you? You're down in Little Rock. Tell everybody why you're down there today.
Yes, there is an event here this weekend, actually a lot of events. It's Moses Moody's Foundation, the Motivate One Foundation. Obviously, he's a North Little Rock native, played at Arkansas. He's teammates with Steph Curry, so he's bringing Steph here to do a lot of the events with this foundation. There's a charity golf tournament today. There's an event at the hotel tonight at the convention center. There's a youth basketball camp tomorrow. There's a whole workshop for kids tomorrow at a school. They're doing a lot of stuff. I think they fed 3,000 families, I think is the number, yesterday or the day before. So, they're doing a lot of stuff here this weekend. So down here to see Moses and Steph and talk about it and have a magazine story at some point.
Now, the question here is, will Steph Curry be able to help you with your three-point shot?
No, I think it's going to be the other way. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding. Absolutely kidding. Hopefully he can help me with that, among other things in my basketball game. Like, maybe we need to start with free throws. So
There you go. All right, so we're going to talk about SEC Media Days, which I said wrapped up on Thursday in Tampa. Ethan and Tom were both down there. And one of the subjects that was talked about down there was Ryan Silverfield's aura. What the heck does that mean?
Well, that's the question that he had too. I don't blame him because aura is kind of, like online. It's kind of slang these days. Younger generation, I guess you would probably consider me, Gen Z or whatever. Of just kind of like the persona you give off, how cool you are. And there were photos, I guess, that the Razorbacks posted over the weekend of Ryan, just kind of like these shots where he was just kind of blank stare, arms crossed, and it blew up on the internet. A lot of people were saying it looked like he worked at like Discount Tire and stuff like that. And then one of the biggest posts that blew up was just like, it said, "Holy crap, this guy has no aura." And so then it turned into a discussion of like, does Ryan Silverfield have aura? Which, this is how you know we're in July right now, by the way, because this is the stuff that we don't care about here in about 30 plus days when the games start. But it was a discussion, I guess, for at least a week. And so Ryan Silverfield pulled up to Tampa getting questioned about his aura. So
I do love this quote that we had in one of our stories. It said, "If having aura means cool and doing all those things well, listen, I've got a hot wife for a reason, right? I can get down. I can recite Notorious B.I.G. lyrics. So whatever you want me to do, let me know. But I think I've got enough aura to find ways to win football games." That was a great quote. This is a guy that's been married for a while, giving props to the wife. He knows he knows who he's got to make happy in his life, and so that was just a great quote from Ryan Silverfield there. He may not have a better quote than that all year long.
It was definitely a memorable one. But yeah, it just wasn't on my bingo card going down there that his aura would be such a topic. It was.
Yeah.
But Chip, I would say that quote, and then in the main media room when a guy asked him, said, um, why are people down on you? I mean, but you had a 5-1 record against other coaches in the SEC, now in the SEC, and Silverfield said, "Can you repeat that?" And the guy gave the number again, and that drew a laugh. And then he said, "Look, I'm not going to throw a podium at you." So he was throwing some shade at John Summerall,
Yeah.
who would, when the guy's phone went off, he said something about, "We don't allow those in our rooms. You're lucky I don't throw this podium at you." And so he had, it showed that he was in touch with what had happened the previous day with his former colleague in the American Conference. So I just thought, Ryan did a nice tight opening statement, which was shorter than most everybody else. I think it was the third shortest, maybe fourth shortest of all the coaches, and he kept it to the neat points. He talked about his coordinators. He talked about the three players who were there, and so he had room for, I want to say he had 12 questions, which was one of the highest numbers, and just kept it really on point. And like I wrote about going in, don't make any major mistakes. Don't do something that people fact checked you on. I just thought that he did show some aura. He showed he had some humor, and like nothing out of the ordinary, but really well on point. So he handled it, I thought, with great aplomb.
He did. How about Sutton Smith's great quote? He really do got aura. I don't know. They tripping. They tripping. He got swag just like me. I like that. He got his coach's back, Tom.
He does, and I guess that occurred in the digital room, and Ethan probably caught that one from Sutton, who, when Ethan came back to his seat, said, "I really like Sutton Smith. This kid, he knows what's going on." So maybe Ethan could elaborate on that one.
Well, that was a great
I
story
think
too. Ethan had on Sutton Smith. Ethan, go ahead and elaborate on that. Give us some
Yeah, I
background.
love when you get to an SEC media days or something and you have a player who either came from like the junior college ranks or a smaller conference because it's like the I don't know, the whole glamour of it all. They just are soaking it up a little bit more. I think it's Sutton Smith kind of gave me that vibe. It's not, I mean, the American Conference is a great conference. I have no clue what their media days are like. I'm sure it's nice. But there's nothing as far as college football media days are concerned like the SEC media days. And so
Well,
Sutton was just a
yeah.
kid that I think I could just tell was, I mean, he was soaking it up that he had made it. He's SEC running back and he's, in his last year followed his coach. It's kind of, you like those stories whenever it's a guy who I know a lot of people like the story of staying loyal to a program these years, but I mean, a lot of guys will stay loyal to a coach, and he stayed loyal to his coach, and now look at, where that's kind of led him here to the SEC to get to be at a media days, be one of the talking heads, I guess, for Arkansas going into the season. But he did a good job. Honestly, all the Arkansas guys I thought did well for themselves there. They were funny, they were outgoing, they were charismatic. It's funny because in that little digital room where Sutton said that, the moderator there, he loves to, he's kind of there. He sees everybody. And he'll drop some little comments after they get going. But he told both Sutton and Caden Kittler that they would have been all SEC like interviews.
I love it.
Like for as far as the media days, he said y'all would be on the all interviews team.
Fantastic. He also Sutton's going to wear number 5, which is a very revered number at Arkansas. And you, I think, mentioned that in your story, centered your story about around that, and wearing Darren McFadden's number 5. Also, Rocket Sanders wore number 5. But talk about that, Ethan, and how much, I guess, maybe what the kind of the weight of carrying that number means.
Yeah, obviously it's gone up a little bit since they introduced last year the patch that the all number 5 jerseys have, which there's an offensive and a defensive player usually wearing the number 5. So last year, like Cam Ball wore it, but it is a little bit different whenever it's an offensive player, and then especially if it's a running back like Sutton Smith to be wearing that number, wearing that patch. Darren McFadden's got one of 3 numbers that are. I know his is just honored. There's the 2 other numbers. 77 and 12, I believe,
Sure.
That are actually retired.
Yeah.
With Ellsworth, and then I'm blanking
Clyde
on
Scott from Smackover, Arkansas.
Smackover Scott. Yep.
There you go. So there's only 3 numbers that have been honored. That's one of them, and obviously 5 is just like a pretty common number that a lot of skill players like. And so Sutton Smith, it was cool to hear that he's done his homework. He has like I I love that it seems like with this patch, there's this new added element of like the player who gets to where it needs to do their homework a little bit and learn a little bit about a player. And I think that's something that honestly the program could really afford a lot more of right now with studying some of the people who made it great when it was. Because I think, and Ryan Silverfield actually mentioned this in the breakout room yesterday about um, how one of the biggest obstacles right now is that everybody wants to talk about the short term with Arkansas football. And he says, why don't we talk about the history of Arkansas? Let's talk about Darren McFadden, right? That's what Silverfield said. He said, let's talk about the 64 championship team. Let's talk about a lot of other things that have been successful. And he was saying how one of his obstacles is trying to get this short term memory away. And he said he needs to get people to quit looking in the rearview mirror with the recent years, especially last year where they went 2-10, and he's in the focus on what Arkansas can be and pointing to things that have been great. So I think that it's cool with this jersey patch that it's kind of a tangible little decal that can get players at least in this era to start studying up on somebody who played for the Razorbacks, well over a decade ago.
Ethan, I'm glad you mentioned the 1964 team because that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. We lost a Razorback legend and an icon in Jim Lindsay this week. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. Before we get to that, Tom, let's talk about Quincy Rhodes coming into the media room. He looked like a hubcap around his neck with a big crown and a B on his chain, and he talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, he did. Now, I was writing my Ryan Silverfield story at that time and trying to get to the airport. So he also had it on the night before, but I didn't hear the explanation. Ethan, maybe you can catch people up on what the crown and B meant.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, "Yeah, there's not a B in my name, is there?" And everyone was like, "No, there's not." He said, "Yeah, it's because B is for boss."
Boss. B
He's
O
like, "I want to
S
be."
S. Boss. Yes.
It's like I want to be a boss this season, basically. Which whatever word you need to get you fired up, I think boss is a pretty good one for Quincy. But yeah, he was. I think he also really enjoyed being there. He had a good quote to me. I don't even have it in a story online or anything yet. It just was it's just something I remember. He said, I don't want to say I came from nothing, but I definitely didn't come from much. That's what he told me. He said, and this was just him getting at what it meant to be at media days and get to, wear all this jewelry and stuff and how it's kind of surreal for him to be in a position to do that. But Quincy, he did well for himself there too. I think that he has always been pretty good with media. He's just pretty funny. But yeah, he definitely wanted it to be known that he was wearing that B for boss.
Came in loud and proud.
Quick sidebar on Quincy. He's a clown because he was behind Silverfield when Ryan. There's a whole group of reporters around him on Wednesday night talking about what he did to tear his pec and what he went through, and they eventually had to have surgery. And Quincy's standing behind him, going, "Yeah, I was the one cutting him with a knife," and he just likes to clown. And if you haven't seen him with the teammates testing the hottest sauces with Tyson chicken nuggets, that's pretty funny. And
like
Caden Kittler did the hottest strength of them all, and really didn't even need milk.
Wow.
So Kittler's outstanding in terms of being able to handle Scoville units.
Wow. Well, so Rhodes, of course, that's a big recruiting win for Ryan Silverfield. First thing he did was try to get him to come back. Quincy could be in an NFL training camp later this week. I mean, he would have been drafted and would have been in an NFL training camp. There's no question about that. But he wanted to come back and play for the new coach. And Tom, I'm seeing a lot of projected things for him to be a late first rounder in this draft if he has the season even remotely close to what he had last year.
Could do. And, he's got some different responsibilities this year in the Ron Roberts defense. He'll drop into coverage some. So, in addition to being a pass rusher, if he can show those skills that he can drop in coverage and disrupt some things, it could upgrade his chances. So he's got they've got to get a way to get pressure on quarterbacks. He's going to be a key guy.
He definitely got the NFL bling thing going on, so he won't have to learn that going into NFL after he gets done here. He's got that going on. And you mentioned Kittler. Once again, a big offensive lineman with a great personality. So, Tom, I was doing some of these recruiting profiles on some of the incoming guys coming in into this recruiting class, the 2026 class that Arkansas signed. And it's funny because on the skill position guys, sometimes, and Richard Davenport could elaborate on this a whole lot more than I can, but the skill position guys are sometimes late to call you back. They're late to text. They got other things going on, that kind of thing. But when you text an offensive lineman and say, "Hey, do you got 10 minutes so I can get a quick interview for a story?" That man, you get an instant response. They're like, "Yeah, man, I'm all about it." And the lineman, like I don't know if it was your story or Ethan's, and he mentions that about how linemen just seem to have just big egos and good and great personalities, and they want to talk to the media because they don't normally get to talk to the media, so they love it.
Yeah, they do. And Bob Holt always talked about how the O linemen are some of the smartest guys on the team, usually, and centers, especially like Kittler. They just have to know so much. And Kittler's a good guy. I think the fans will hopefully get to know him a little bit better. And being at Media Day certainly assisted with that.
I love what he says. He rolls into Waffle House, which of course Waffle House doesn't get any more American than that. And if you're not a Waffle House fan, I don't know if I can be your friend. But Waffle House is great. He goes, I get the sausage, egg, and cheese hash brown bowl and add gravy on top of that. So I'm thinking it's a gigantic bowl of just everything thrown in there. And I would love to see the offensive line at Arkansas sit down at a Waffle House and just absolutely tear something like that up. I bet that would be fun to watch.
They got some big old boys like Kobe Branham, but Kittler's got to stand in there more against the bull rushes this year. That's one of his biggest challenges is those 320 pounders who try to bull rush him a little bit. He's got to anchor in there and fend them off this year.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things that came out of SEC Media Days. Of course, we still don't have a word on the starting quarterback, and Silverfield has held to his word on that a starter would not be named until maybe before opening kickoff in the season opener. So they haven't named a starter yet. But Tom or Ethan, either one of you take this. What's your gut feeling? Did you get any kind of nugget at all out of what Silverfield said that might give you a hint as to who might be a front runner if there is one?
It feels to me like they're keeping it just under wraps as much as they want to. And I was actually thinking about this morning. This morning is, Ryan even. I mean, this was the most coach speak thing of all time, was to say we might not know, and we might know when y'all do when we run out for that coin toss. Like, come on now, they'll
Yeah.
know before the coin toss who they're going to roll out with QB1. But I mean, I do think about it. We've seen these scores in recent years with the FCS and SEC games. Those can get really out of hand. Like, you're honestly, if you don't play multiple quarterbacks in those games, you probably did something wrong. I think about a few years ago when Arkansas played UAPB here in Little Rock, and it was like 70-0. And I think Arkansas got 3 QBs in that game. To where I do think it actually, this quote unquote battle, they might, they're probably holding a little bit, close to the chest of where they're at with it. But I do think it is one of those deals where if you do feel like it's that close, you might wait and see in that game against an FCS team, which QB looks better in an actual game. Because both should be able to play in that game unless you're just really behind where you should be. So I think it's one of those deals where it wouldn't shock me if, you saw KJ play the first half, AJ play the second half, and maybe that plays a role into who's starting for the next week at Utah. Or maybe it really, there is a winner and we just don't know it yet. And they're just trying to, kind of to, like I said, keep it close to chest. But they haven't changed their tune as far as since the first time we talked to Ryan, him saying that it's going to be a quarterback battle that goes all the way through fall camp. They haven't changed the messaging there.
Well, and also in
Oh,
today's transfer portal ways, if you name a starter, the other one's probably going to leave. You're going to need both quarterbacks. You need to have that depth, and so he's playing it. I would play it the same way, Tom, wouldn't you?
well, yeah, I mean, it's because one of them comes with you from Memphis in AJ Hill, and one of them is the guy who showed some dedication by coming back to your program the same day Quincy Rhodes did. And those were 2 huge PR wins for the Ryan
Yeah.
Silverfield regime. The players probably understand who's leading right now, because there's got to be a guy who's more ahead. Now, late in spring, Tim Cramsey mentioned that AJ Hill's completion percentage was a fraction higher, but from what we saw with our own eyes, it looked like KJ Jackson led the team a little bit more. So in my eyes, KJ Jackson has the lead going in. AJ Hill knows the system more, but I would be surprised if Hill takes the first reps in game 1. I think it's going to be KJ.
Yeah.
They have to say that, but the team understands internally what's happening, and I'm sure it's a pretty close race. And who knows, maybe something different will happen in camp where one of them clearly leads the top unit better than the other. At some point, one of the two has to get more work with the ones, and that's going to occur the last couple of weeks of camp
leading in,
heading into the season.
Yeah, when they're doing their install. So let's go skip to some other things that were going on during SEC Media Days. So the number one thing I thought was 6 new coaches, were introduced, and who kind of stood out there as one of the newcomers. Either one of you take this on as one of the newcomers who feels like, who, in your opinion, came in real comfortable and handled the media days like a veteran.
I'll go first on this one, Ethan. He and I were in agreement. John Sumrall really had a good show. Just was on top of what he was talking about. Well, we mentioned the cell phone thing going off, which some people misinterpreted as being tough, but he was just, even if he was at the beginning, like he was immediately put off by a guy's phone going off, he played it off and did well. Just walked up and said, "Hey, this is Gator country. We're in Tampa, Gator country." And I get the feeling that he will know how to run the program. He's shown that in what he did at Troy and at Tulane. So he was good. I thought Pete Golding had a really strong deal. Now, he probably went off script a little bit when he talked about tampering.
Right.
The first time he answered it was like what the compliance department wanted to hear. The second time, he talked about, like, if you're not in the fast lane and all that, you're not doing what everyone else is doing and you're behind. And that was the insinuation that it's impossible to try to land somebody if the agent hasn't already reached out to you and you haven't gone through the hoops. So those two did well. I thought Ryan Silverfield did very well. I wouldn't put him at the very, very top, but he did very well. I think he probably top 4. I'm top 6. I'm going to end up ranking these guys at some point.
I love it.
Those are my initial thoughts. And some guys who were just a little quick, a little bland. DeBoer, Josh Heupel never modulates the pitch of his voice, and it just comes across pretty flat.
He's monotone.
Yeah. So, Ethan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I shared the same general thought. I mean, I also think some of the coaches who have done them before have improved. Like Clark Lee at Vanderbilt just seems a lot more polished now as far as I mean, he's always been well spoken, I think, but he just kind of brings a little bit more confidence. I think it helps when you are fresh off a great season at Vanderbilt to walk into a building a little more confident. But Kalen DeBoer sounded, sure of himself. I thought Kirby Smart's always Kirby. He's just kind of controls a room. I love whenever Kirby Smart's up there, if he doesn't understand a question or he wants further clarification, he's going to ask the reporter, right? Like, you better be ready as a reporter to either explain yourself or have him question your wording on something. Like have your question ready in a good manner. But yeah, as far as the newbies, I thought Tom nailed it. John Sumrall was really impressive. I'll be really surprised if Florida doesn't start to head back at least in the right direction. I'm not going to put over here saying that they're going to get back to Urban Meyer how they were under him or anything, but I would say they're going to take a step in the right direction under him because he's just a winner. I mean, you look at his resume, he's a winner. And he just seems like he has what it takes to win in this era of college football, where he's kind of a younger guy who he's just a football guy. You can just tell, but can relate well with players. And he also, my goodness, I felt like his brain he just operated at such a high level, where he was just like, it was like he was thinking about 4 things at once and getting you one concrete answer that you needed to hear as a reporter. He was good at it. He was so good at it. But yeah, Ryan did well for himself. I wasn't that impressed with Golish, but I think that's honestly just more Golish's personality to be a little bit more cerebral. But yeah, honestly, it's hard to be a real loser at media days, but I actually don't think Lane Kiffin really brought much of the thunder that people expected. So I don't know if that makes him a loser of it or a winner, actually, because I think Lane Kiffin probably got out of it exactly what Lane Kiffin wanted out of it.
I think the most shocking thing that came out of SEC Media Days was that Lane Kiffin's no longer on social media. He's unplugged at the behest of his son.
Yeah, and he also, that actually was kind of a theme that Lane talked about a little bit, was just he's given up a lot of things within the past year to try and declutter his life, I guess, a little bit. And he was saying how that's helped out his staff. But, well, it's so funny because all this stuff is off-season talk. We love talking about it in July, but here in about a month and a half, are you winning football games? And that's all that anybody cares about. But it is always fun to show up and at least hear what these coaches have to say and see how they can try and sell you on thinking their team is great, because it's not mathematically possible for all these teams to end up actually being great. But it's you at least sell people to have a little bit of belief in you, and I thought Ryan did a good job of that.
So that's a recap of SEC Media Days. If you want to read more about this, and we will also have even more coverage over the weekend from SEC Media Days at wholehogsports.com. You can also catch that in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. You can catch all of that coverage that Tom and Ethan provided, the print coverage plus the video coverage from there every day of the event down in Tampa. All that coverage, again, wholehogsports.com. For everything Razorbacks and everything SEC, you can go there and read all about that. We're going to talk now about we lost a legend this week in the death of Jim Lindsay. He was 81 years old. He died last Sunday after a lengthy illness. And in fact, today is Friday, and his celebration of life is going to be this afternoon in Fayetteville. But Tom, you were a long time on the Arkansas beat, on the Arkansas football beat, been around for a long time. Jim Lindsay, he in a lot of ways is the face of the Razorback program for many, many years.
Yeah, he was a great at a time when Arkansas football was at a peak, winning a national championship, and obviously became a great, media, or excuse me, a great real estate titan here in Northwest Arkansas. I encourage everyone to read Clay's um, honorary column about Jim Lindsay. It was a fantastic read, and the fact that he helped a lot of people and made some wise decisions with his real estate purchase, which his dad initially thought that might be the worst move you ever make, and then said that he didn't sell the land at a big enough price, and that might have been a biggest mistake he ever made. But
well,
he,
dads are never happy. That's the way dads are.
Yeah, but when I first got here, there was the coaching change after the first year, and I went in and asked for an audience with Jim Lindsay, and he had me up on the upper floor of that Lindsay building, and I got to meet him, and he was very gracious. And I was trying to see if there was any insight he had into who the new coach would be, and he. It was really nice that he entertained the young guy, new on the beat, and I always remember that. And of course, again, read Clay's column. It was a really well done piece. It was a tribute to Jim Lindsay, who became a great um, a great person that Frank Broyles could go to and get some assistance with things the athletic department needed financially, and invaluable resource and a big time name in not only Arkansas athletics, but the business community up here in real estate.
He, of course, Lindsay was a key player on that 1964 undefeated national championship team. He had a big block on Tommy Nobis, the great Tommy Nobis, the Texas All-American linebacker that helped get Ken Hatfield free on that punt return for a touchdown that was so huge in that game. He was involved in so many key moments in that time frame for Arkansas during that 22-game winning streak. So in '64, he had a big key play in that game, a big key block. His name that never shows up in the box score. That's not part of the statistics. But if that block doesn't happen, Hatfield doesn't score, Arkansas may not win that game, and they don't win a national championship. The next year in '65, again against Texas, Frank Broyles himself said on the sideline, he goes, I was kind of losing it a little bit, and Jim Lindsay stood up and kind of took over the huddle and rallied his teammates, and they came back to win that game to keep that undefeated season going. Of course, they end up losing in the Cotton Bowl to LSU, but Lindsay, huge leader, huge leadership part right there for the team, and so just so many big plays there. Of course, Lindsay was later went on to be drafted. Now, Ethan, this is interesting. You're just a young guy. You won't remember this, and Tom, I don't even know if Tom will remember this. But before the NFL and the AFL merged in 1970, they were completely separate leagues. So you could be drafted by an NFL team and be drafted by an AFL team, and then you would sign with whichever league you would want to. Of course, the NFL was the more established league. They'd been around for a long time. The AFL was new, and they were the guys that wore white. Oh my God, white cleats! They're wearing white cleats. Look at their hair's long. They got beards. That kind of thing. But anyway, so Jim was drafted by the Vikings and also by the Buffalo Bills. He ended up signing with the Vikings, playing 6 or 7 seasons with the Vikings, and was in the Super Bowl IV 1970 against the Kansas City Chiefs. So he was definitely an NFL player. But his impact here in Northwest Arkansas was definitely as a business leader.
Yeah, and it's always good for people like me who I was born in the great year 2000 to get to hear all these things about a guy like Jim Lindsay. And it's like, it's always nice whenever there's somebody who leaves a legacy that, you know, people younger like me get to like learn and hear about him because of all the things that they did, not only to better, like you said, the programming with the Razorbacks, but also just the community. I mean, the Lindsay name, if you are I feel like if you go to the University of Arkansas and you are needing an apartment complex, you'll at bare minimum know the Lindsay last
Yeah.
name, and it's I don't know, he's just revolutionized I think the area, and it's impacted generations to come. So yeah, definitely thoughts and prayers with everybody close to him. It's always hard to lose such a legend in the community, but it's been cool to see the outpouring of people just say great things about him. I think that's actually how Ryan Silverfield opened up his media days appearance yesterday in Tampa.
Yeah.
Was starting off by saying, that the Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas will miss Mr. Lindsay.
And again, his celebration of life Friday afternoon in Fayetteville. They'll have that, and we will definitely miss Jim Lindsay for sure. So, Ethan, you're down in Little Rock today for the Moses Moody thing, and Steph Curry's going to be there. So Ethan will have full coverage of that. He already had a story a couple weeks ago on WholeHogSports.com that like kind of laid out what was going to happen this weekend with that. And so always great for guys like Moses Moody, Jalen Williams to come back home and do big things to help be in the community, and Isaiah Joe and things like that. Bobby Portis just can go on and on and on about these former Razorbacks that come back to their hometowns and put on camps and clinics and things like that to help the community. So Ethan, glad you're down there covering that. You'll have a big story on that probably Sunday on WholeHogSports.com.
Yeah, well, Saturday I'll have a story up about this basketball camp they're doing. I'll be curious to see the look on kids' faces getting, taught a little bit by Moses Moody, who's a hometown hero, and Steph Curry, who's just a legend. I mean, what a cool opportunity for kids here in Little Rock. So I'll be there, and then a little bit down the road, hopefully in a magazine feature, we'll have kind of a more comprehensive look at the entire weekend and the impact that Moses is having, because Moses is, I mean, he's I knew Moses a little bit whenever he got stepped onto Arkansas's campus as a freshman, and I knew like he had a professional mindset about him as a freshman, but he's really like doing all the professional things as far as like he cares a lot about how he's giving back to his hometown. I actually believe I'm blanking on what like exact entity it is of the NBA, but it's basically their whole community like the their little club basically of players and how they're giving back, and Moses I think is on the board of it now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which is pretty cool for him being still relatively a younger guy in the league. But he's definitely like walked the walk since he's gotten in the NBA as far as trying to give back to Little Rock. This is I think the third or fourth time he's come back here. It's just Steph is obviously the biggest name teammate that he's brought down here to Little Rock with him. I think he had Draymond Green one year, maybe Klay Thompson another year, but Steph Curry coming to Little Rock is pretty cool, and they're here I think all weekend to do a lot of events. So it's not just like a quick little pit stop, shake a few hands, take a few pictures. They're actually out here doing multiple events all weekend. So pretty cool stuff.
Also, Jalen Williams, I mentioned him. He is having a basketball camp both in Fort Smith and in Springdale. I believe it's this weekend. It could be next weekend. Don't quote me on those dates, but I know he's having one. Again, it's either this weekend or next weekend for that. So Jalen always comes back and gives back to the community, and that's fantastic. Also want to put on everyone's radar next Thursday. That's going to be on July the 30th. The Arkansas Sports Writers and Sportscasters Hall of Fame luncheon will be that day at Home 2 Suites by Hilton in Springdale. And we'll be inducting 2 new members of the Sports Writers and Sportscasters Hall of Fame. That'll be Ray Tucker going in and Steve Wright going in as a sports writer. So you want to be there for that. If you need to get tickets for that, you can get tickets at ozarkstix.com. That's OZARKSTIX.com. Again, that luncheon is next Thursday at Home 2 Suites in Springdale. It's right off of the interstate, right across the street from the Marketplace Restaurant. You can still get tickets, and that's always a great event in the summer, and that kind of leads us into football camp the next week, and so it's always a good time, and hopefully there'll be some former inductees there for that. So we'd love to have you come and join us for that. Matt Jones will be back next week, back in the chair. He's been on the beach this week, Ethan. You've been in Tampa working. He's been on the beach working on his tan.
Yeah. Well, at least one of us was. It was kind of it's funny going down there to Tampa for media days. And it's like you're getting teased by the beach that you see through the window, but you're really in a hotel if you're us working away. But Matt deserves that beach trip. I'm glad they got
Yeah.
away, and he actually had a really pretty cool story go live on our website today that he's been working on for a while.
Mention that.
It came official today. This oh my goodness, I don't want to mess up his
That's why I wanted you to introduce it, because I don't want to mess up his name.
I know his first name is Shogo, so I'll just call him Shogo Mayachi. The Arkansas signed a Japanese pitcher, Shogo Mayachi. I'm just gonna roll with it and say it confidently. It's Mayachi. He's the first Japanese-born player to sign with an SEC baseball program out of high school. So pretty cool deal. He's a 6'5" pitcher. And I just know Matt he's known about this, been, just waiting for it to actually be official. And it was today. It's kind of just a trend, in recent years where these Japanese players are coming over to America and really excelling in baseball. But now it's like, going down to the college level too. So, I mean, definitely a very cool deal.
Absolutely. And so that will wrap up our show. Oh, well, I was going to, before I do, talking about the beach, our Anthony Christensen, he will be flying out next week to the Bahamas. The Arkansas men's basketball team is playing 4 games in the Bahamas, and Anthony will be going out there for that. So we'll have full coverage of that at hohogsports.com. So if it's Arkansas sports, we're there, and we're all about it. And we thank you for listening and watching today, the Ho Hog Sports podcast. Matt will be back next week, but until then, for Ethan Westerman and Tom Murphy, who had to leave a little bit to get the air conditioning in the house fixed, hopefully he'll get that going this afternoon. Stay cool.